When Emma sat at the wrong table, she had no idea she was about to fall in love with the one man she could never have. The Seattle rain drummed softly against the windows of Victrola Coffee and Art, creating that cozy atmosphere that only the Emerald City knew how to provide. Emma Patterson nervously adjusted her navy blue blouse for the third time in 5 minutes, her brown eyes scanning the cafe in search of a dark-haired man wearing a red tie, exactly as her best friend had described her blind date. "You need to get out more, Emma," she murmured to herself, imitating Sarah's voice. "He's perfect for you, Emma. Trust me, Emma." She sighed, watching the typical Thursday afternoon movement in Capitol Hill. The rich aroma of freshly roasted coffee mixed with the gentle sound of conversations and the clinking of cups. Emma had worked late at Sterling & Associates again, rushing out only to make this date she didn't want to have. 2 years as an executive secretary on the 23rd floor, and she still felt like she was chasing something bigger. Maybe that's why she had agreed to this ridiculous date. Her eyes fixed on a solitary man sitting near the window, with his back to her. Perfectly styled dark brown hair, broad shoulders under an impeccable grey suit. She couldn't see his tie, but she was sure it was him. Taking a deep breath, Emma headed to the table with determined steps. "Sorry I'm late," she said, pulling out the chair without waiting for a response. The traffic on Fifth Avenue was impossible, and then the man turned around, and Emma felt her heart skip a beat. Piercing blue eyes, defined jawline, and an expression of surprise that perfectly mirrored her own. This wasn't the insurance accountant Sarah had described. This man had a presence that filled the entire room. I think you've got the wrong table," he said, his deep voice carrying an amused tone. A smile began to form at the corner of his lips. Emma's face instantly flushed. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. She stood up quickly, but in her nervousness her elbow hit the glass of ice water that was on the table. The liquid flew in a perfect arc, landing directly on the elegant man's chest. "No!" Emma screamed, her hands flying to cover her mouth in horror. "I'm a walking disaster." The man stood up slowly, drops of water dripping from his expensive white shirt. For a moment, Emma thought he would be furious. Instead, he began to laugh, a genuine warm laugh that made his blue eyes sparkle. "Well," he said, grabbing some napkins, "this is definitely the most interesting way anyone has ever used to get my attention." Emma couldn't decide whether to laugh or cry. "I'll pay for the dry cleaning, I promise, or buy a new shirt, or both. My God, you must think I'm a complete—" "Breathe," he interrupted gently, extending his hand. "Nathan Sterling." Emma hesitated for a moment before accepting the handshake. "Emma Patterson. And I don't normally attack strangers with water." "Noted," Nathan said, still smiling. "Were you looking for someone?" "A blind date," Emma admitted, feeling ridiculous. "My friend convinced me that I needed to get out more and meet new people." She made air quotes. "Apparently, I should be looking for someone with a red tie." Nathan looked down at his navy blue tie. "Well, technically it's blue, but I can pretend it's red if that helps." Emma laughed, despite herself. "You're very kind, but I should leave you alone. I've caused enough damage for one day." "Actually," Nathan said, gesturing to the chair, "would you like to join me? It looks like we're both alone, and honestly, this is the most interesting conversation I've had in weeks." Emma hesitated. She really should look for her actual date, but something about Nathan made her want to stay. "Are you sure? Your shirt is soaked because of me." "It'll dry," he said carelessly. "Besides, I'm curious about someone who can turn a simple table mistake into an aquatic spectacle." Emma sat down, still blushing. "I swear I'm not always this clumsy. Well, maybe I am a little. Okay, I'm very clumsy. But usually it's with smaller things like tripping over rugs or knocking over stacks of paper." "Do you work in an office?" Nathan asked, signaling the waitress to bring more water. "Yes, at a consulting company downtown." "Sterling & Associates," Emma replied, not noticing the expression of surprise that quickly passed across Nathan's face. "It's a good job, but sometimes I feel like I could be doing something more meaningful, you know?" Nathan leaned forward, intrigued. "Meaningful how?" Well, I have some ideas for improving the company's process efficiency, small things that could make a big difference. But as an executive secretary, it's not exactly my place to suggest operational changes. Maybe it should be, Nathan said thoughtfully. Emma studied him for a moment. You seem very confident for a... Sorry, what's your profession? Business? Nathan replied vaguely, taking a sip of his coffee. And you? Besides being a specialist in aquatic warfare, I mean. Emma laughed. I study business administration at night at the University of Washington. I hope to be able to use my knowledge to really make a difference someday, instead of just organizing calendars and answering phones. Ambition is an attractive quality, Nathan commented. My family doesn't agree, Emma said, her expression becoming slightly melancholic. They think I should be satisfied with a stable job and looking for a husband, hence this disastrous blind date. Disastrous? Nathan pretended to be offended. I thought we were getting along well. You know what I meant, Emma said, smiling. Though, to be honest, this conversation is being much more interesting than I expected it to be. Nathan leaned closer. Want to know a secret? I was also supposed to be on a blind date today. My assistant convinced me that I work too much and need a social life. Really? Emma asked, surprised. Where were you supposed to meet her? Here, actually. Table in the back at 4 o'clock. Emma looked at her watch. It's 4:15. I know, Nathan said, smiling. I think I prefer this version of events. Across the cafe, a dark-haired man with a red tie was clearly looking for someone, his phone in his hand. Emma noticed him and pointed discreetly. I think that's my actual date, she whispered. Nathan looked in the indicated direction. And I believe that woman in the yellow dress who just walked in is mine. They looked at each other for a moment, a spark of understanding passing between them. So, Nathan said slowly, technically, we're both missing our blind dates. Technically, Emma agreed, feeling butterflies in her stomach. How about we have our own blind date? Nathan suggested, extending his hand again. Hi, I'm Nathan. Nice to meet you. Emma smiled, shaking his hand. Hi, Nathan. I'm Emma. Nice to meet you too. Outside, the Seattle rain continued to fall, but inside the small cafe in Capitol Hill, two hearts began to find a common rhythm, completely unaware that their professional lives were about to collide in ways neither of them could imagine. Emma floated through Friday morning as if she were walking on clouds. Even Seattle's persistent rain couldn't dampen her radiant mood as she navigated the busy streets toward the Sterling and Associates building downtown. The previous night had been magical. 3 hours of conversation flowing naturally with Nathan, shared laughter about life in Seattle, and a connection she had never felt before. Good morning, Emma, greeted Derek, the lobby security guard, noticing her bright smile. You're particularly radiant today. Good morning, Derek, Emma replied, her cheeks blushing slightly. Just a beautiful day, I guess. Derek looked out the window at the typical grey Seattle rain. If you say so, ma'am. The elevator took her to the 23rd floor, where she worked as an executive secretary for the Vice President of Operations, Margaret Thompson. Emma had gotten this job 2 years ago, straight out of college, and while she was grateful for the opportunity, she always knew she was destined for something bigger. Emma, you're 2 minutes late, Margaret commented, without looking up from her papers when Emma passed her desk. Sorry, Miss Thompson. The traffic on Pike Street was heavier than normal. Margaret murmured distractedly. I need you to organize the files for Monday's board meeting. And don't forget we have the quarterly presentation in the conference room at 10. Emma settled at her desk, but her mind kept wandering to Nathan. He had asked for her number, and they had exchanged messages until late at night. He was funny, intelligent, and had a way of making her feel like her opinions really mattered. When she mentioned her ideas for improving company efficiency, he had been genuinely interested, asking insightful questions that showed he was really listening. Patterson, Margaret's stern voice brought her back to reality. Are you daydreaming? I need these reports organized now. Yes, ma'am, immediately. Emma dove into her work, but couldn't completely push away thoughts of Nathan. He had mentioned working in business, but was vague about the details. There was something sophisticated about him. The way he carried himself, the obvious quality of his suit, the natural confidence in his gestures. Emma wondered what kind of business he ran. At 9:45, Margaret appeared beside her desk. "Emma, I need you to accompany me to the conference room. I'll need someone to take notes during the presentation." Emma grabbed her notepad and followed Margaret through the elegant glass-lined corridor. Sterling and Associates' main conference room was impressive, a long mahogany table surrounded by leather chairs, with a spectacular view of Elliott Bay through floor-to-ceiling windows. "Today, we'll have the honor of hearing our CEO present the quarterly results," Margaret explained as they settled in. "Mr. Sterling rarely comes down for these presentations, so it's a special occasion." Emma nodded, preparing her notepad. In 2 years working at the company, she had only seen Nathan Sterling in passing, a distant figure in the executive elevators or walking quickly through the lobby. She knew he was young for a CEO, probably in his early 30s, and that he had taken over the company from his father a few years ago. Executives began entering the room, men and women in expensive suits, talking in low tones about profit projections and market strategies. Emma positioned herself discreetly in a side chair, ready to take notes. "Good morning, everyone," came a familiar voice from the room's entrance. "Sorry for the delay. I had a meeting that ran longer than expected." Emma looked up from her notepad and felt the world stop. Walking to the head of the table, wearing an impeccable navy blue suit and carrying a leather briefcase, was Nathan. Her Nathan from the cafe, her Nathan who had laughed when she spilled water on him. Her Nathan who had spent 3 hours talking with her about dreams and ambitions. Nathan Sterling, CEO of Sterling and Associates, her boss. Emma felt the blood drain from her face. Her hands began to shake, and she gripped the pencil so hard she almost broke it. It couldn't be. It had to be some cruel cosmic mistake. Nathan began setting up his presentation. He hadn't looked in her direction yet. "As you know, this quarter brought unique challenges to our industry." Emma tried to shrink into her chair, desperately hoping he wouldn't notice her. Maybe she could slip out quietly. Maybe she could pretend it never happened. Maybe she could simply disappear into the floor. "And that's why we need to innovate, not just in our services, but also in our internal operational structure," Nathan continued, beginning to walk around the table. His eyes swept the room, greeting various executives, and then he saw her. Nathan stopped mid-sentence, his expression changing from professional to absolute shock. His blue eyes locked onto hers, and Emma saw the exact moment he processed the situation. She was the secretary. He was the CEO. They had spent the previous night flirting over coffee. Excuse me," Nathan said, clearing his throat and trying to regain his composure. "Where was I?" "Operational structure, Mr. Sterling," offered one of the vice presidents. "Right. Operational structure." Nathan forced himself to continue, but Emma could see he was struggling to maintain focus. His eyes kept drifting in her direction, and each time it happened, she felt her stomach do somersaults. The presentation that should have lasted an hour seemed to last an eternity. Emma scribbled meaningless notes in her pad, unable to process a single word of what was being said. Her mind was in total panic. How had this happened? Of all the companies in Seattle, of all the cafes, of all the missed blind dates. "Any questions?" Nathan finally asked, his voice sounding slightly strained. Several hands went up, but Emma couldn't pay attention to the answers. She was too busy planning her escape. As soon as the meeting ended, she would run to the bathroom, hide there until he was gone, and then she didn't know what she would do. "Very well then," Nathan said, closing his briefcase. "Thank you for your time. Miss Patterson, could you stay a moment? I need to discuss some details about the notes." Emma felt her heart stop. Several executives looked curiously. It was unusual for the CEO to ask to speak with a secretary. Margaret frowned, clearly confused. "Of course, Mr. Sterling," Emma managed to say, her voice coming out as a squeak. The room slowly emptied, with Margaret casting a questioning look at Emma before leaving. Finally, they were alone. The silence stretched between them, tense and charged. Nathan adjusted his tie, a nervous gesture Emma hadn't seen at the cafe the night before. "So," he said finally, his voice low, "it seems we have a situation." "Mr. Sterling, I can explain," Emma began, but he raised his hand. "Nathan," he said softly. "Last night, I was Nathan. That hasn't changed. Emma felt tears sting her eyes. But everything has changed. You're my boss. I'm just a secretary. I shouldn't even be talking to you like this. Emma? Nathan took a step toward her, but she backed away. No, she said, shaking her head. This was a mistake. A terrible mistake. I should have known that someone like you would never really be interested in someone like me. Someone like me? Nathan repeated, his brow furrowing. Emma, you don't understand. I understand perfectly, Emma said, her voice getting stronger despite the tears. You're Nathan Sterling, CEO. I'm Emma Patterson, secretary, end of story. She headed for the door, but Nathan called out to her. Emma, wait, we can talk about this. Find a solution. Emma stopped at the door, not turning around. There's no solution, Mr. Sterling. There's nothing to resolve. Last night it was just a misunderstanding. With that, she left the room, leaving Nathan alone with his thoughts and a growing feeling that he had just lost something very important, before even having the chance to understand it completely. Emma ran to the women's bathroom, locked herself in a stall, and finally allowed the tears to fall freely. Fairy tales didn't happen to girls like her, especially not with CEOs like Nathan Sterling. The weekend passed like a grey fog for Emma. She had spent Saturday walking aimlessly through Pike Place Market, watching the fish vendors throw salmon, while trying to process Friday's events. Sunday was spent in her small Fremont apartment, alternating between watching romantic movies that made her cry and eating ice cream straight from the container. Monday arrived too quickly, bringing with it heavier rain than usual and the terrible reality of having to return to work. Emma dressed with extra care, a conservative grey suit that she hoped would make her invisible. Her strategy was simple: avoid Nathan Sterling at all costs. "Are you okay, dear?" asked Derek as she passed through the lobby. "You look a bit pale." "Just Monday morning," Emma mumbled, forcing a smile. The 23rd floor seemed different now. Every corridor hid the possibility of an unwanted encounter. Emma settled at her desk, determined to keep her head down and focus on work. "Emma," Margaret appeared at 9:30 carrying a stack of files, "I need you to take these documents to the legal department on the 25th floor." Emma's heart sank. The 25th floor was executive territory, very close to Nathan's office on the 26th. Wouldn't it be possible to email them? "They're confidential documents that need physical signatures," Margaret said, frowning. "Is something wrong, Emma? You've been strange since Friday." "No, ma'am. Everything's fine." Emma took the files, took a deep breath, and headed for the elevator. The 25th floor was a different world. Thicker carpets, more expensive art on the walls, and a silence that spoke of power and money. Emma delivered the documents quickly and was heading back to the elevator when she heard a familiar voice. "Emma." She turned slowly. Nathan was standing at the entrance to a conference room, wearing a charcoal suit that made him look even more imposing than she remembered. "Mr. Sterling," she said formally, hoping her voice wouldn't tremble. "Can we talk? In private?" Emma looked around. Several employees were paying attention, clearly curious about why the CEO was talking to a secretary from the 23rd floor. "I don't think that would be appropriate, sir." Nathan hesitated for a moment, then approached. "Please," he said quietly. 5 minutes. Against her better judgment, Emma found herself nodding. Nathan led her to a small empty conference room, closing the door behind them. "Emma, about Friday." "There's nothing to discuss," Emma interrupted. "It was a misunderstanding. Let's just forget it happened." "I can't forget," Nathan said, running his hand through his hair. "Emma, what happened between us at the cafe was real. You can't just pretend it wasn't." Emma forced herself to look at him. What was real was a conversation between two strangers who met by chance. "Now we know who we really are." "Do we?" Nathan questioned. "Emma, you know me. You spent 3 hours with me. You laughed at my terrible jokes, told me about your dreams, shared your passion for improving business processes. That was real." Emma felt her determination waver. "You don't understand. I'm a secretary. You're the CEO. There are rules." "Rules that I can change," Nathan said, moving closer. "No," Emma stepped back. "You can't change what people will think. You can't change the fact that everyone will assume I only got my position because of Other reasons. Nathan stopped, the reality of Emma's words hitting him. Emma, I would never... I know you wouldn't, Emma said softly, but that doesn't matter. Perception is everything. The silence stretched between them. Nathan seemed to be struggling with something internally. What if... He began slowly. What if no one knew? What do you mean? Casual meetings, away from the company. Just two normal people getting to know each other. Emma stared at him. You're suggesting we be secret? I'm suggesting we give ourselves a chance, Nathan said. Emma, I can't stop thinking about you, about us, about what could be. Emma closed her eyes, feeling her resistance crumble. Nathan, this is crazy. Maybe, he admitted. But is it crazy worth trying? Before Emma could respond, knocks on the door interrupted them. Margaret entered without waiting for an answer. Emma, I looked for you everywhere. Oh! Margaret stopped, noticing Nathan. Mr. Sterling, sorry for the interruption. No problem, Miss Thompson, Nathan said, instantly returning to professional mode. We were just discussing some details about the notes from the last meeting. Of course, Margaret said, although her expression suggested she wasn't entirely convinced. Emma, I need you back downstairs. Yes, ma'am. Emma headed for the door, pausing only to look at Nathan. Thank you for the clarification, Mr. Sterling. You're welcome, Miss Patterson, Nathan replied, but his eyes said much more. The rest of Monday passed in a haze. Emma tried to focus on work, but kept thinking about Nathan's proposal. Secret meetings. It was risky, probably stupid, and definitely complicated. But it was also tempting in a way she couldn't ignore. At 6:30 p.m., when Emma was tidying her desk to leave, her personal phone buzzed. A message from Nathan. Gasworks Park. Tomorrow at 7:00 p.m., if you want to give us a chance. Emma stared at the message for a long time. Gasworks Park, away from downtown, a place where no one from the company would recognize them. She knew she should delete the message, go home, and forget Nathan Sterling. She knew she was playing with fire. Instead, she found herself typing, I'll be there. After sending the message, Emma leaned back in her chair and sighed. She was about to embark on the most dangerous adventure of her life, and the scariest part was that she wanted it more than anything she had ever desired. Outside, the Seattle rain continued to fall, but Emma felt as if the sun was about to rise. Secret meetings with the CEO. What could go wrong? As she gathered her things, Emma didn't notice Margaret watching her through the glass partition, a thoughtful expression on her face. Margaret had worked in corporate environments long enough to recognize the signs of a complicated situation developing, and Emma Patterson, with her flushed cheeks and bright eyes, was definitely in the middle of something complicated. Margaret picked up her phone and dialed a familiar number. Hi, it's me. We have a situation you need to know about. Emma, oblivious to the storm that was forming, left the Sterling & Associates building with a secret smile on her lips and butterflies in her stomach. Tomorrow would be the beginning of something completely new and potentially dangerous. But for the first time in years, Emma Patterson felt truly alive. Emma spent all of Tuesday with her stomach in knots. Every time the phone rang or Margaret called her, she was sure she had been discovered. How could anyone suspect from just an exchange of messages? But paranoia was a small price to pay for the anticipation that kept her energized throughout the day. At 6:45 p.m., she was standing at the entrance to Gasworks Park, watching the city lights reflect on Lake Union. The former industrial complex turned park offered a spectacular view of the Seattle skyline, and on a clear night like this, it was almost magical. The Space Needle gleamed in the distance, and Emma could see ferries crossing the dark waters. You came a familiar voice behind her. Emma turned to find Nathan walking toward her, but he looked completely different. Instead of the impeccable suit, he wore dark jeans and a casual grey sweater. His hair was slightly tousled by the wind, and he carried 2 coffee cups. I thought you might be cold, he said, offering one of the cups. Vanilla latte, no extra sugar. Did I guess right? Emma smiled despite her nerves. How did you remember? I pay attention, Nathan said simply. They walked slowly along the trail, the initial silence gradually giving way to more natural conversation. Without the suits and corporate environment, it was easier to forget who they were on paper. "So," Emma said, taking a sip of her coffee, "what's your excuse for being here? Business meeting?" Nathan laughed. "Actually, I told my assistant I was going to the dentist. A dental emergency, to be specific." "How specific?" Emma laughed. "And dishonest." "Hey, technically I could have a toothache," Nathan defended himself, smiling. "And you? What was your excuse?" "I told my roommate I was going to a yoga class." Emma paused. "I hate yoga." "So we're both terrible liars," Nathan observed. "That's a good start for whatever this is." They found a bench overlooking the water and sat down, maintaining a respectful distance but aware of each other. "Nathan," Emma said finally, "I need to ask. Why are you doing this? You could have any woman in Seattle. Why complicate your life with a secretary?" Nathan was quiet for a moment, watching the city lights. "Do you want the honest answer?" "Always." "Because you made me laugh," he said simply. "When you spilled that water on me, and then started apologizing profusely as if you had caused an international disaster. I laughed genuinely for the first time in months." Emma looked at him surprised. "Really?" "Emma, do you know what it's like to be Nathan Sterling?" he asked, turning to face her. "Every person I meet wants something from me. Contracts, favors, connections. Every conversation is calculated. Every smile has an agenda." "It must be lonely," Emma said softly. "It is," Nathan admitted. "But you didn't know who I was. You talked to me because you wanted to talk to me. You laughed at my jokes because you found them funny. Not because I'm the CEO. You told me about your dreams without expecting me to make them come true for you." Emma felt her heart racing. "Nathan, and when you found out who I was, your first reaction was to pull away. Not try to take advantage. Not start calculating what you could gain." He smiled sadly. "Do you have any idea how rare that is?" "Maybe you just know the wrong people," Emma suggested. "Maybe," Nathan agreed. "Or maybe I found the right person in the most unlikely place." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, the weight of his words hanging between them. Emma felt like she was standing at the edge of a precipice, about to jump, without knowing if there was a safety net. "So what do we do now?" she asked. "How about we start slow?" Nathan suggested. "Get to know each other for real, away from the company, away from expectations. Just Nathan and Emma." "Just Nathan and Emma," Emma repeated, liking the sound of it. "Can I ask you a question?" Nathan said. "Those ideas you mentioned about improving company efficiency, were you serious about them?" Emma blushed. "You don't want to hear about that, it's just—" "I do," Nathan interrupted. "Seriously, tell me." "Well," Emma began hesitantly, "I noticed we waste a lot of time on redundant approvals. For example, any purchase over $500 needs to go through 3 different departments, even if it's something simple like office software." Nathan leaned forward, interested. "Go on." "If we implemented a tiered approval system based on purchase type and department history, we could reduce processing time by half while maintaining necessary controls." "That's really brilliant," Nathan said, genuinely impressed. "Do you have other ideas?" For 15 minutes, Emma talked about her observations, inefficiencies she had noticed, solutions she had developed, improvements that could save time and money. Nathan asked intelligent questions, offered insights, and Emma found herself speaking with more passion and confidence than she had felt in years. "Emma," Nathan said when she finished, "these ideas are extraordinary. Why have you never presented them?" Emma laughed bitterly. "To whom?" "I'm a secretary." "Nobody asks secretaries for their opinions on business strategy." "They should," Nathan said firmly. "You're on the ground floor. You see how things really work. Your perspective is valuable." "You're just being kind." "No, I'm not." Nathan turned to face her completely. "Emma, you're brilliant, genuinely brilliant, and it's frustrating that nobody has recognized that." Emma felt tears sting her eyes. Nobody had ever talked about her ideas with such respect, much less considered implementing any of them. "Thank you," she murmured. "No, thank you." for reminding me that the best ideas can come from anywhere." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the city lights twinkle. The wind from the lake carried the scent of salt and freedom. "Nathan," Emma said finally, "this is complicated." "Yes, it is. Dangerous. Probably. Stupid. Possibly." Emma turned to look at him. "So why does it feel so right?" Nathan smiled, reaching out to gently touch her hand. "Because sometimes the best things in life are complicated, dangerous, and stupid." They looked at each other for a long moment, and Emma felt something shift inside her. It was terrifying and exciting at the same time. "So we do this?" she asked. "Secret meetings? Encrypted messages? The whole clandestine situation?" "We do this," Nathan confirmed. "But with one condition." "What?" "Total honesty between us. No games, no pretending to be someone we're not. Just the truth." Emma extended her hand. "Deal, Mr. Sterling." Nathan shook her hand, but didn't let go. "Nathan. Just Nathan." "Deal, Nathan." As they walked back to their cars, Emma felt like she was entering completely new territory. It was scary but also exciting in a way she had never experienced. What neither of them knew was that, from the other side of the park, sitting in a dark car with a long-range camera, someone had documented every moment of their meeting. Margaret Thompson lowered the camera and smiled coldly. Some information was worth its weight in gold, and she had just discovered a gold mine. Emma Patterson and Nathan Sterling had no idea of the storm that was about to descend upon them. The next 2 weeks passed like a secret dream for Emma. She and Nathan developed an elaborate system of casual encounters, coincidences at Pike Place Market coffee shops, accidental walks through Discovery Park, and evening meetings at the Seattle Art Museum, where they could get lost among the exhibitions and pretend to be just two strangers admiring art. Emma had never felt so alive. During the day, she maintained her perfect professional mask, being the efficient secretary she had always been. But in the evenings and weekends, she transformed into the version of herself that Nathan saw. Intelligent, funny, passionate. He encouraged her to talk about her ideas, listened to her opinions on everything from politics to her favorite movies, and made her feel like her words really mattered. "You're different," her roommate Sarah commented on a Thursday morning while they prepared coffee. "More radiant." "That yoga class must be working." Emma almost choked on her coffee. "Yeah, yoga has been transformative." "Maybe I should try it too," Sarah said thoughtfully. "Which studio do you go to?" "Oh, it's a very small studio," Emma lied desperately. "They have a huge waiting list." Sarah laughed. "Typical Seattle. Even yoga has a waiting list." At the office, Emma managed to maintain her professional composure, but sometimes caught herself smiling for no reason or lost in thoughts. Margaret had been strangely quiet the past few weeks, watching Emma with an intensity that made her uncomfortable. It was a grey Thursday afternoon, with typical Seattle rain beating against the windows when the bomb exploded. "Emma," Margaret appeared beside her desk, carrying a manila folder. "I need to see you in my office, now." Margaret's tone was icy, colder than Emma had ever heard. She followed her supervisor to the small, meticulously organized office, noting that Margaret closed the door, something she never did. "Sit down," Margaret said, positioning herself behind her desk like a judge. Emma sat, her hands beginning to shake. "Is something wrong, Miss Thompson?" Margaret opened the folder and pulled out several photographs, spreading them across the desk. Emma felt the blood freeze in her veins. The photos showed her and Nathan at Gasworks Park, walking side by side, sitting on the bench, their hands touching. "I imagine you can explain this," Margaret said, her voice cutting like ice. Emma stared at the photos, her mind racing. I don't understand." "You don't understand," Margaret laughed. But there was no humor in the laugh. "Emma Patterson, you have been secretly meeting with the CEO of this company. Don't insult me by pretending ignorance." "Miss Thompson, I can explain." "Oh, I'm sure you can." Margaret leaned forward. "The question is, what do you want? Promotion, raise, or maybe you're collecting information to sell to competitors?" "What? No." Emma stood up, indignant. "I would never do something like that." Then what are you doing? A secretary doesn't have casual meetings with the CEO, Emma, especially secret meetings in isolated parks. Emma felt tears burn her eyes. It's not what you're thinking. Then tell me what it is, Margaret crossed her arms. And don't come to me with romantic stories. Men like Nathan Sterling don't get involved with women like you for love. The words hit Emma like a punch to the stomach. Women like me? Secretaries, common employees, dispensable people, Margaret said cruelly. Emma, you're a smart girl. Surely you understand that all of this is about power and control. He's having fun with you. You're wrong, Emma whispered, but her voice didn't sound convincing even to herself. Am I? Margaret picked up another photo, this one showing Nathan gently touching Emma's face. Then why are you hiding? Why don't you go public? Emma had no answer for that. The truth was that she had wondered the same thing herself. I'll make you an offer, Margaret continued, her voice softening slightly. End this now. Cut all contact with Nathan Sterling outside the professional environment, and I'll forget this happened. And if I don't agree? Margaret smiled coldly. Then these photos find their way to the board of directors, and you know the company policies about relationships between employees of different levels. You'll be fired immediately, of course, but Nathan will face questioning about his decisions, his fitness to lead the company. Emma felt like the world was collapsing around her. You're blackmailing me. I'm protecting this company, Margaret corrected. And believe it or not, I'm protecting you too. Emma, do you really think this would end well for you? That you two would live happily ever after? Emma began, but the words died in her throat. All her insecurities, all the doubts she had tried to suppress, came flooding back like a wave. You have until tomorrow at noon to decide, Margaret said, collecting the photos. End this, or I'll end it for you. Emma left the office in a state of shock. She mechanically headed to the women's bathroom, locked herself in a stall and allowed the tears to fall freely. Was Margaret right? Was all of this just Nathan having fun? Had she been too naive to believe that someone like him could really care about someone like her? Her phone vibrated. A message from Nathan. Coffee tomorrow? I have something important to tell you. Emma stared at the message for a long time before deleting it without responding. That night, Emma wandered aimlessly through the wet streets of Seattle, passing by coffee shops where she and Nathan had laughed together, by the park where they had talked about dreams and ambitions. The city that had seemed so full of possibilities now felt cold and unforgiving. She stopped in front of a store window, seeing her reflection in the dark glass. An ordinary woman, wearing an ordinary coat, living an ordinary life. What had made her think she could have more than that? When she got home, Sarah was watching TV on the couch. Hey, how was yoga today? Sarah asked, but stopped when she saw Emma's face. Emma, what happened? You looked devastated. Emma sat heavily beside her friend. Sarah, do you think someone like, let's say a CEO, could genuinely be interested in someone like a secretary? Sarah studied her carefully. Emma, what's really going on? Emma closed her eyes. I fell in love with the wrong person. Oh, honey, Sarah pulled her into a hug. Do you want to talk about it? I can't, Emma sighed. It's complicated. The best ones always are, Sarah said gently. But Emma, you deserve someone who values you, someone who doesn't make you feel like you're not good enough. Those words echoed in Emma's mind all night. She lay awake until late, staring at the ceiling, trying to decide what to do. Margaret had given her until noon, 12 hours to choose between her heart and her career, between an impossible dream and brutal reality. The next morning, Emma arrived at work with the decision made. She typed a simple message to Nathan. I can't do this anymore. Please don't try to contact me. She sent the message before she could change her mind. 15 minutes later, Nathan appeared on the 23rd floor. Something unprecedented. Emma saw him getting out of the elevator, his eyes searching for her. She quickly got up and practically ran to the bathroom, locking the door behind her. Through the door, she could hear his voice asking for her, the desperation evident in his tone. Margaret explaining that Emma was busy with urgent tasks and couldn't be interrupted. Emma leaned against the door and cried silently, every fiber of her being wanting to run to him, explain everything, fight for them. But Margaret's words echoed in her mind. Men like Nathan Sterling don't get involved with women like you for love. Maybe it was better this way. Maybe it was time to wake up from the dream and return to reality. When she finally came out of the bathroom, Nathan was gone, but on her desk there was an envelope with her name. Inside, a simple note. "Emma, please, let me explain. N." Emma crumpled the note and threw it in the trash, ignoring the pain that tore through her chest. Some love stories, she thought, don't have happy endings, and some people, as she had discovered in the most painful way, simply weren't born to live fairy tales. 3 weeks passed like a grey fog for Emma. She functioned on autopilot, arrived at work punctually, executed her tasks with mechanical efficiency, and avoided any place where she might encounter Nathan. When he tried to look for her again a few days after her text breakup, Margaret had interfered, claiming that Emma was too busy for unnecessary meetings. Emma had become an expert at avoiding the 26th floor, taking stairs when necessary, and timing her breaks to avoid Nathan's schedule. But even so, she felt his presence in the building like a constant ache in her chest. "Emma, you need to stop this," Sarah said on a Saturday morning, finding Emma still in pajamas at 2 p.m. watching reruns of old sitcoms. "Whatever happened with this mysterious guy? You can't continue like this." "I'm fine," Emma lied, not taking her eyes off the TV. "You're not fine, you look like a ghost. When was the last time you ate a real meal?" Emma couldn't remember. Everything tasted like paper these days. "Come on," Sarah pulled off the covers. "Let's take a walk to Pike Place Market. Fresh air, people. That salmon smell you love." "I can't," Emma protested. Pike Place was where she and Nathan used to meet casually. "You can and you will," Sarah insisted. "Enough of this self-pity." Reluctantly, Emma got dressed and accompanied Sarah through the busy market. It was a typical Seattle day, cloudy with the promise of rain, tourists taking photos of the fish vendors, the aroma of fresh flowers mixed with coffee. Emma tried to distract herself, but every corner reminded her of Nathan. They were passing by a flower shop when Emma heard a familiar voice. "Emma? Emma Patterson." She turned to find James Morrison, a colleague from her night classes at the University of Washington. James was nice, intelligent, and had shown interest in her a few times, but Emma had always been politely distant. "Hi, James." Emma forced a smile. "What a coincidence. Sarah, this is James, from my business administration class. James, my roommate, Sarah." "Pleasure." James smiled warmly at Sarah before turning back to Emma. "You missed the last few classes. Is everything okay?" "Just work," Emma lied. "It's been a busy time." "Actually," James hesitated, "I was thinking, there's a lecture on business innovation at the university on Monday. The speaker is CEO of one of Seattle's biggest companies. Would you like to go with me?" Emma felt her stomach sink. "Which company?" "Sterling and Associates. The guy is young, kind of legendary in business circles. Nathan Sterling." Emma's world stopped. Sarah noticed her expression and quickly intervened. "How interesting. Emma loves business lectures, don't you, Em?" I can't," Emma mumbled. "Sorry, James, maybe another time." James looked disappointed but nodded. "Sure, I understand. Good luck with work." After he left, Sarah turned to Emma with a determined expression. "All right, enough. Who is Nathan Sterling, and why did mentioning his name make you look like you saw a ghost?" Emma looked at her friend for a long moment, then broke down. "He's my boss, and I fell in love with him." "Your boss?" Sarah's eyes widened. "Emma, you work for—" "Sterling and Associates, yes, and he's the CEO, and I'm an idiot who thought a fairy tale could be real." Sarah pulled Emma to a nearby bench. "Tell me everything, now." And Emma told her about the missed blind date, the spilled coffee, the weeks of secret meetings, and finally Margaret's blackmail. When she finished, Sarah was speechless. "Emma, do you realize this sounds exactly like a romantic movie?" "Romantic movies have happy endings," Emma said bitterly. "Real life doesn't." "Wait a minute," Sarah frowned. "This Margaret, Something about this doesn't seem right. Why would she care so much? And why was she following you? She said she was protecting the company. Or she's protecting something else, Sarah murmured thoughtfully. Emma, have you ever considered that maybe she has her own reasons for wanting Nathan away from you? Emma looked at Sarah. What do you mean? Think about it. Margaret has worked there for how long? About 10 years, I think. And she's never been promoted beyond Vice President of Operations. Well, no, but... Emma, an ambitious woman who spends 10 years at a company without reaching the top develops resentments. And if Nathan is genuinely interested in you, if he values your ideas like you say he does, you think Margaret is jealous? I think Margaret saw a threat to her position and decided to eliminate it, Sarah said firmly. And you let her win. Emma was silent, processing Sarah's words. Could it be true? Had Margaret really manipulated the situation for personal reasons? Even if you're right, Emma said finally, it doesn't change anything. Nathan is the CEO, I'm a secretary. People will always assume the worst. People will always have opinions, Sarah countered. The question is, are you going to let fear of people's opinions determine your happiness? That night, Emma couldn't sleep. Sarah's words echoed in her mind. Had she been so quick to accept Margaret's version of events, so ready to believe she didn't deserve Nathan's interest? On Monday morning, Emma arrived at work determined to observe Margaret more carefully. And it didn't take long to notice things she had missed before. How Margaret frequently found excuses to go to the 26th floor. How she always knew details about Nathan's schedule that weren't her responsibility to know. During lunch, Emma decided to do some investigating. She went to the Central Archive and looked for Margaret's evaluation records. What she found shocked her. Margaret had been repeatedly passed over for promotions in the past 5 years. Her evaluations were good, but not exceptional. And there were several notes about her resistance to change and difficulty accepting new perspectives. Even more revealing was a printed email that had fallen behind the file, correspondence between Margaret and a board member from 6 months ago, discussing concerns about young Sterling's impulsive leadership and the need for more experienced guidance. Emma held the paper with trembling hands. Margaret wasn't protecting the company, she was protecting her own political agenda. Found something interesting. Emma turned quickly to find Margaret standing at the archive entrance, her expression icy. I was just looking for an old report, Emma stammered. Margaret approached slowly, her eyes fixing on the email in Emma's hand. That's a confidential document, Emma. I hope you understand the implications of accessing materials that aren't your responsibility. Implications? Emma felt a spark of courage. Like the implications of blackmailing employees? Margaret smiled coldly. Careful, Emma. You're already on unstable ground. Don't make things worse for yourself. Or what? You'll fire me? Make up reasons to hurt me? Emma stood up, holding the email. You manipulated the whole situation, didn't you? It wasn't about protecting the company. It was about protecting your own position. You don't understand anything about corporate politics, Margaret said, but Emma detected a note of nervousness in her voice. I understand enough to know that blackmail is wrong, and I know enough to recognize when someone is lying. Margaret took a threatening step toward Emma. Emma, you're going to forget what you saw here. You're going to go back to your desk, do your work, and keep your mouth shut. Or I guarantee you'll never work in Seattle again. No, Emma said, surprising herself with the firmness in her voice. I won't let you intimidate me anymore. With that, Emma walked past Margaret and left the archive, the email still in her hands. Her heart was beating like a drum, but for the first time in weeks she felt in control. It was time to discover the truth, it was time to fight for what mattered, and it was time to find out if Nathan Sterling really cared about her as much as she had cared about him. Emma looked at her watch. 3:30 p.m. If she hurried, she could catch Nathan before he left for his afternoon meetings. It was risky, potentially disastrous for her career, but some things were worth the risk. Emma took a deep breath and headed for the elevator, pressing the button for the 26th floor. The 26th floor was territory Emma had avoided like the plague for the past few weeks. Now, standing before the executive receptionist, she felt her legs trembling, but her determination remained firm. Margaret's email was folded in her sweaty hand, her evidence, her proof that she had been manipulated. "I'm sorry, but Mr. Sterling is in a meeting," said the receptionist, an elegant woman named Victoria, whom Emma recognized from the elevators. "It's urgent," Emma insisted. "It's about Margaret Thompson and information that directly affects the company." Victoria hesitated, studying Emma's determined face. "Let me check." She made a quick call, murmured some words quietly, and then nodded to Emma. "Conference room 3, he has 5 minutes between meetings." Emma walked down the corridor with thick carpeting, passing expensive paintings and perfectly maintained plants. Each step brought her closer to Nathan, closer to the truth she needed to tell, closer to discovering if she had burned all bridges or if there was still a chance for them. She knocked softly on the conference room door and heard the familiar voice. "Come in." Nathan was standing near the window, looking at the panoramic view of Seattle. When he turned and saw her, his expression changed from professional to a mixture of surprise, hope, and carefully controlled pain. "Emma," he said, his voice lower than she remembered. "You came." "I discovered something," Emma said without preamble, extending the email. "About Margaret. About why she separated us." Nathan took the paper, his eyes quickly scanning the content. She watched his expression change from confusion to understanding, and finally, to anger. "This is," he began. "Proof that Margaret has been playing against you for months," Emma completed. "And I was the idiot who let her convince me that you were just toying with me." Nathan placed the paper on the table and approached her slowly. "Emma, you're not an idiot. She manipulated the situation. Manipulated you." "I should have trusted you," Emma said, tears beginning to form in her eyes. "Should have trusted what we felt at the cafe, in the park, in all those moments. Instead, I let my insecurities take over." "Your insecurities were understandable," Nathan said gently. "Emma, you were right about one thing. Our situation is complicated. I'm the CEO, you're an employee. People will talk." Emma felt her heart sink. "So Margaret was right." "No," Nathan said firmly, taking another step toward her. "Margaret was wrong about everything. About my feelings for you, about your capabilities, about what you deserve." He stopped right in front of her, close enough for her to feel the warmth of his body. "Emma, these past 3 weeks, I tried to forget you. Tried to convince myself that Margaret was right, that it would be better for everyone if I just moved on." "And did you succeed?" Emma asked in a whisper. Nathan smiled sadly. "It was a complete failure. You know why?" Emma shook her head. "Because you changed everything for me. Before I met you, my life was meetings, reports, and decisions. Then you spilled water on me and reminded me that there's life beyond business. You made me laugh, made me think, made me want to be a better person." "Nathan," Emma began, but he continued. "And your ideas, Emma. Those efficiency ideas you mentioned? I implemented 3 of them in the past month. They've already saved the company over $200,000. Emma stared at him in shock. "You did what?" "I presented your ideas to the board as anonymous employee suggestions. They were unanimously approved." Nathan smiled. "Emma, you're brilliant, and anyone who can't see that is blind." "But I'm just a secretary." "You are Emma Patterson," Nathan interrupted, his hands gently finding her face. "You're the woman who sees solutions where others see problems. You're the person who makes me want to be better. You're the woman I fell in love with, and I don't care who knows it, even if it causes problems for you." "Emma," Nathan said, his thumbs caressing her cheeks, "some problems are worth facing." Emma felt tears falling freely now, but they were tears of relief, of joy, of love she had tried to suppress for weeks. "I love you," she whispered. "I tried to stop, tried to forget, but—" Nathan silenced her with a gentle kiss, all the repressed love and longing of the past weeks pouring into that moment. When they separated, both were smiling through tears. "I love you too," Nathan murmured against her lips. "And this time, we're going to do this right." "What do you mean?" Nathan pulled back slightly but kept his hands on her face. "First, Margaret Thompson will be transferred to our Portland branch. She won't be a problem anymore." Nathan, you can't do that because of me. I'm not doing it because of you. I'm doing it because she violated the company's trust and acted unethically. What she did to you was just the tip of the iceberg. Emma nodded, feeling a weight lift from her shoulders. Second, Nathan continued, you're going to be promoted, operational efficiency consultant, reporting directly to me, starting salary of $80,000. Nathan, I can't accept a promotion just because... Emma, he laughed, you earned this promotion with your ideas. Your solutions have already proven their value. And honestly, I should have recognized your talent long ago. And third, Emma asked, curious. Nathan smiled, that smile that had made her fall in love at the cafe over a month ago. Third, I'd like to take you to dinner, a real date, public, where we don't have to hide. People will talk, Emma warned. Let them talk, Nathan said. Emma, do you want to know a secret? I plan to talk too. I plan to tell everyone that I'm lucky to be with the most incredible woman in Seattle. Emma laughed through her tears. Are you sure about this? About us? I've never been more sure of anything in my life, Nathan said. The question is, are you sure? Emma looked into the blue eyes that had captured her heart from the first moment, thought about all the twists that had led them here, about all the barriers they had overcome. Yes, she said firmly, I'm ready for our collision of hearts. Nathan laughed at the reference to the water accident that had started everything. This time, let's try not to spill anything. Where's the fun in that? Emma joked, moving closer to him again. Outside the conference room, Seattle's corporate life continued its fast pace, but inside that space, two people had found something more valuable than any business. They had found true love. And when they left the conference room together, holding hands, they didn't care about the curious looks or whispered conversations. They had each other, they had the truth, and they had a future full of possibilities. Margaret Thompson, watching from the elevator entrance, pressed her lips in disapproval before pressing the button to go down. Some battles, she realized, simply weren't worth fighting, especially when it came to collisions of the heart. 6 months later, Emma was standing in the same cafe in Capitol Hill where it all began, waiting for Nathan for their weekly Friday date. They had made this a tradition, returning to the location of their first accidental encounter to remember how they got there. Her new position at Sterling & Associates had proven even better than she had imagined. Her suggestions were transforming the company's efficiency, and for the first time in her life, Emma felt she was making the difference she had always dreamed of making. Sorry, I'm late, Nathan said, appearing beside her with 2 coffee cups. Board meeting ran long. No problem, Emma smiled, accepting her latte. How are the news from Portland? Margaret is adapting well to her new position, Nathan said diplomatically. Apparently, managing a smaller branch suits her. Abilities better. They sat at the same table where Emma had mistakenly sat so many months ago, watching the typical Seattle rain through the window. Nathan, Emma said suddenly, can I ask you something? Always. That first day, when I spilled water on you, did you really think it was funny or were you just being polite? Nathan laughed, taking her hand across the table. Emma, it was the most refreshing thing that had happened to me in years. Literally. Emma groaned at the terrible joke but was smiling. That was awful. But you laughed, Nathan pointed out. I always laugh at your bad jokes. That's why I love you, Nathan said, lifting her hand to his lips to kiss it softly. Emma looked out the window at the busy streets of Seattle, thinking about how dramatically her life had changed. Sometimes life's best moments came from the most embarrassing mistakes. Sometimes sitting at the wrong table led you exactly where you needed to be. What are you thinking about? Nathan asked. About collisions, Emma said, smiling, and how sometimes they take us exactly where we need to be. Nathan raised his coffee cup. To happy collisions. To happy collisions, Emma agreed, toasting with him. Outside, Seattle continued its eternal rhythm, rain, coffee, and love stories being born in the most unlikely places. And in the small cafe in Capitol Hill, 2 souls who had found each other by chance continued writing their own story, 1 cup of coffee at a time.